But there's one genre that tends to do really well in the theaters right now. Horror. Here's why I think horror does well. I think out of any genre that people want to be immersed in to feel the fear, you need to be in the dark. You need to be in the immersion experience. People are less likely to be on their phone during a horror, and it's more fucking annoying when they're in a movie because it's pulling you out. Yeah, because the movies are usually dark. Or even if it's something like Weapons, which takes place a lot during the day, you want to be in the darkness vibe of it. And so I think horror naturally gravitates people to want to be in a dark, immersive experience. Because at home, it's not most of the time, unless you're by yourself. It's not going to be as scary most of the time when you're by yourself. Or, I mean, most of the time when you're at home, you got the lights on and shit. This allows for the true genre experience, you know? And I think that's a great way for where studios really ought to learn. Beyond that, though, that I think is the next wave of big movies. If we're going to like transition a little bit more into genre stuff, because I do want to talk about streaming and I want to talk about some genres that I think are going to take off. So with genres, horror really is a category that is, I think, going to excel. I think Marvel and DC, like what DC is doing, man, as I came out of my mouth, I just heard it. DC show. But DC,
I see the comment in the future.
What DC's doing with Clayface.
Genius.
Smart ass move to put the Mike Flanagan name behind it. So you get the horror diehards who, like, maybe the average person doesn't know the Mike Flanagan name, but the horror diehards, that's all you really got to tend to. You could do it at a mid-budget price.
Yeah.
It could literally influence the entire genre. It would be amazing if they're able to pull, if it's a good movie, because horror, even, I was looking it up today, even a movie like Together, which was not really a box office juggernaut or hit, but it profited.
Right.
Off of making like $25 million or something like that, because the movie was done for cheap. Because it's multiple faceted with horror. There was a time where being in a horror movie as an actor was lackluster. It had to be some prestigious ass shit like Exorcist or Shining, and you needed something like a tour director behind it to attract. Now you get shit like, I don't know when it started, but like I think Ari Aster and Toni Collette and the whole cast there for Hereditary, where Ari Aster was an unknown director, but he managed to get like
Together's
Toni
a first-time director.
That's what I mean.
First-time director.
That's what I'm talking about. Actors who are known, because we don't really thrive on celebrity name anymore, and we got to acknowledge that. Like, just get that shit out of the way. I think people are drawn more to a collaboration between actor and director that they're more familiar with than they are just an actor's name alone.
Which is so interesting because it definitely removes me from the conversation. I struggle because I will see everything an actor does.
Of course.
But we're in a very specific bubble.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for me not to think that way. Like when I look at what's playing, I don't look at what the log line is. I don't look at the director. I look at who's in the movie that week and I go see that person.
But I think that's why Sinners, that I feel like
Michael Jordan and Ryan Coogler.
I think that's an overlooked contribution of why Sinners did well. You know, like it's not a big thing. It's not the biggest thing. I don't think it's the number one thing of why it did well, of like knowing these two are collaborating, but that certainly piques an interest.
And there are directors that are like the movie stars of today. Like Nolan movie is, you see it because it's Nolan.
I mean, just today, Emma Stone's new movie, I haven't seen any of those movies. I haven't seen any of them, but they keep working together. She keeps getting Oscars, and I think the hype just keeps building around it. You know, you start with something much more lower budget. Now they're just getting crazier and crazier, and they can be more experimental. I think it's really cool what they're doing in that direction. Or like even with F1, the idea of getting the Top Gun Maverick guy with Brad Pitt, not just Brad Pitt alone, and not just the Top Gun Maverick guy, but the idea of like getting these two together. I think that's the director and actor combination. I feel like has a little bit more appeal than people kind of give credit for.
No, that's a really good point. The collaborative nature of those things is the headline now. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and I think horror, though, Weapons is a completely original movie.
Yeah, second-time director.
Second time director in the genre.
Zach Kreger did Barbarian and then this.
He did a other thing before.
Oh yeah, he did like a Miss March, like a sex comedy.
Kids you know.
And he was the whitest kid you know.
Yeah,
and that led to the sex comedy Miss March, and then
So it's really like but now he's gonna do Resident Evil.
Yeah. An original take, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, so like horror's clearly proven itself. I feel like that's a talking point that has been like beaten to death.
I think comedy's gonna come back.
You feel like it?
I
I'm
think
kinda worried.
that
I don't-
Naked Gun was sold out every time I went to go see it, and then I saw it in a very full house. I think comedy is so rare; it's going to be like horror was 5 years ago, where it's going to be like everyone talks about it because it's like I can't believe a comedy's doing well,
Yeah.
and then you throw in some of those. I think it's fairly low cost compared to other things. I think we need the escapism. I think superhero movies were doing really well in a time that we were celebrating feeling like, okay, I think we're through this, and like there was a confidence. I don't think there's much confidence right now in anything, and I think that superhero films are really good escapism as like optimism and altruism, and I think there will always be an audience for that. I think there's always going to be an audience that wants to aspire, but I think people are going to want to escape more. And I think that there isn't as much escapism if you've got homework, which is why I like what DC's doing. I think after Secret Wars, Marvel needs to make less homework because it doesn't feel like escapism if you're trying to tie it together. I think we need more escapist stuff, which is horror wraps you in a world, comedy puts you in a euphoric state. I think superhero stuff can, but I think those are the things that are going to do really well. I don't see myself going to mini biopic dramas right now because I don't want to think about stuff.
Well, while we're on the superhero topic, I think that's where, when I'm looking at like what Doomsday has been doing with hype versus, it's back.
Spider-Man? Oh.
That sound, that threatening sound. What I'm looking at is what Doomsday is doing with hype versus Spider-Man. I think the Spider-Man hype seems way more positive leaning than Doomsday is. It was like on the drive over, I was listening to the Weekly Planet podcast, and we're talking about like Alan Cumming returning and stuff. And just thinking about how like that was exciting for like a day, right? You know, the idea of like this like giant cast coming in because it kind of hit you with this dopamine effect of these announcements. But people are also kind of jaded now by the experience of Cameo Fest, and they've kind of like caught on that. I think the average audience members caught on that like they know what they're doing because they need to get people back in the theaters.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's going to be a bad movie. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that I think that there's a reason, and then I think there's a discourse, and then some of that's reading as like desperate with the Robert Downey Jr. stuff. But I still think Avengers Doomsday has the opportunity to, like, I think it could turn the tide still if they nail it right. You know, I think the marketing though has to be something truly incredible and truly something special. It can't just be Marvel and a bunch of names that we have attached, because that's kind of what they've just did and what we're used to, and it doesn't really have power. So like we were talking about one of these podcasts ago about how like they should do like crazy vintage. Like my favorite kind of marketing is when there's billboards or bench advertisements for stuff that you don't really realize is part of a show or a movie.
Yeah.
You know, so that way it makes you feel like you're stepping into a world. You know, like I remember the first one that comes to mind is the show Santa Clarita Diet. It was Drew Barrymore and Timothy Olyphant for Santa, and it was a great show. I still wish it wasn't canceled, but they worked in real estate in the zombie show, and they were just bench billboards. What are those called? They're bench advertisements. Is there like a specific word for that? But there's like benches like by the buses, and it was just, it looked like a real estate advertisement.
Did you see all the accountant ones?
Yeah.
Ben Affleck advertising accounting services. I thought was genius.
Yeah, stuff like that. But I think we can do something more ominous with Doom. Of like, Doom is coming. Doom is coming. I think you could do stuff that looks like graffiti.
They should have dudes in Hollywood with the signs, man. Doom is coming.
You know, like the famous images from Watchmen, like end is nigh.
That's what I mean, like crazy people on the corner, like Doom is coming, but it's an ad.
That's what I mean. Because they you know, I was listening to Dan Murrell's video this morning, and he brought up a good point about what made more money. It was a video, like, you guys haven't seen it. It's a really great breakdown of Man of Steel versus Superman in terms of box office, but it's more than just, hey, if you adjust for inflation, this is what it is. It's so much more intricate in detail. And one of the many points he brought up was how Man of Steel relied more on traditional marketing, which cost exuberantly more, versus nowadays they rely on social media marketing, and that's where Superman really lent into it. So they actually don't need to make as much to be profitable for a much bigger variety of reasons. And I think they can do that with Dr. Doom, not just like show up on a famous TikTok or someone's podcast. I think that all helps, and it's cheaper. But yeah, really immersing people into the world of making there feel like a threat is coming, you know, and then you realize it's a movie. I think that would be the best way to go with like Dr. Doom. So you build a mysticism around it